Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over the all-new Chevy Trailblazer Activ. Before we get in this video though, a huge shout out and thank you to the Land Rover here in Lehigh, Utah for giving me some time with this Trailblazer. Yes, someone traded in their Trailblazer for a Land Rover, which is such a baller move in my opinion. But anyways, I'll include a link to their inventory in the description down below. If you have any questions or need any help, just ask for Jordan. And then on a side note, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. So under the hood, we have a turbocharged 1.3 liter 3-cylinder that goes through a 9-speed automatic transmission. Power outputs are 155 horsepower at 5,600 RPMs and then 174 pound-feet of torque at 1,600 RPMs. Now, before we go over the front end, I do want to mention, if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. So starting with the hood, you guys can see flat there in the center, and then we do have some distinctive lines there on either side. Pretty sharp looking daytime running lights here, and then you guys can see the headlight down below, so yeah, split light design, and then we got a fog light down below that. We got the Chevy bow tie front and center, and I like the coloration on this trim on the front end. I think it looks pretty cool. But putting it all together, the Trailblazer, it looks like a mini Blazer, so it works. Come around the side here, tire and wheel setup is 225/60/17 in the front and in the rear as well. And then you guys can see you've got the silver trim on the top, and then it's kind of like darker below that. I think altogether it looks pretty good. We've got these plastic fender flares here, and then that continues all along the bottom. It's kind of like an off-road SUV thing to do. And then notice with the mirrors, they're body painted, and so are the door handles. And then we have this black roof, which looks pretty cool. And putting it all together, I actually really like the style of the Trailblazer. So here is our key fob. We've got our unlock function, our lock function, remote start, and then the opening here for the hatch. We'll press that a couple times and it'll pop it right open. Now, popping inside, you guys can see that storage space here behind the second row is actually really solid, and we also happen to have a spare tire underneath with plenty of storage. And look at that, it just holds it in place for you. And then when you're all done, just press this button and that will lower the hatch right down. Now, taking a look at the taillights, really sharp design, and of course you've got the normal like Chevy taillight design there with like the Y shape. Anyways, got our Activ badge here in the back, another Chevy bow tie, and then you guys can see Trailblazer there on the other side. And then look at the covers to the exhaust tips, those look pretty good. But yeah, I mean, when you put it all together, this really does look like a mini Blazer. Now, taking a look at the door panel here on the rear, first off, you guys can see pretty normal door handle. Hard touch with the trim back here. I mean, it's a Chevy, what do you expect? However, the seats are a lot nicer. I mean, look at the padding on them. I think they look pretty good. Legroom here in the back is solid. And then you guys can see you got a little storage pocket right there as well. And then headroom's also good. And it also has a cup holder armrest. Now, taking a look at the front door panel here, this is where the trim gets pretty exciting. You guys can see the coloration there. And then we have this like cloth trim and kind of padded. We've got all of our window controls here. Front one is automatic, mirror adjustments, and then you guys can see here for the hatch, and then speaker for the Bose sound system. Yeah, and there's a lot more pizzazz with the front seats too. So the center portion is the same as the back, but we also have like the cloth inserts here, which I guess kind of make it a little bit more exciting. And then notice our power adjustments there on the side. So we've got our light controls right here, and then you guys can see the steering wheel is manually adjustable. Now, taking a look at the steering wheel itself, you guys can see really nice padding all around. We do have radio controls on the back of the steering wheel itself. And if you look a little bit closer here, you guys can see we've got our cruise control, heated steering wheel function as well, voice command controls for the center stack. And then, of course, we got our turn signal stock and then our windshield wiper stock. So here is our center gauge cluster. You guys can see mostly analog there, but you do have that screen in the center. And well, speaking of the center screen, we can scroll through some different menus, see different bits of info on the vehicle. Notice it says 2-wheel drive. We can also pop it into all-wheel drive, and it's a pretty quick setup. We also happen to have a sport mode that gives you a little racing flag when you pop it into that mode. Now, in reverse, we do have trajectory lines that turn with the steering wheel, and resolution on the camera is pretty solid. And then as for the rest, the infotainment system, first off, response time with the screen is really good. It comes with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and you guys see there's some physical buttons at the bottom, which helps out with the practicality. Now, this is pretty cool with like the trim on the dash and the padding. I think that looks great. And there's also a little bit of storage above the glove box. So we've got our climate controls here. You guys can see single zone climate with heated seats. And then just down below that, you guys can see we've got like our charging area with our wireless phone charging pad, some USBs, and all of that. Right here, we've got some controls for like your auto stop start, your lane departure, stability control. That's for your sport mode, and then your all-wheel drive setting as well. Now here's a shifter for that 9-speed automatic. You guys notice there's an L mode. That's kind of like your manual mode. There's some buttons here on the side to go through that manual mode. We've got some cup holders right here with our parking brake, and then more storage. And look at the center console, also very spacious. And then some nice padding here on the top. And speaking of storage, got the glove box, and we got the original window sticker too. That'll actually help us out a little bit later. And then up top here, we got our controls for the full panoramic sunroof. Now, first off, I need to mention that this is the original MSRP. This doesn't represent current market value because, again, this is a pre-owned vehicle, so it's worth whatever it's worth on the market. Anyways, so you guys can see the original base MSRP is $27,400, and then this one has some options added to it. And total MSRP in this one originally was $32,775. Let's see how it drives. Well, let's talk about visibility before we set off. Here's your visibility over the hood, both of the mirrors, to blind spot monitoring, and then through the rest of the rear, and active away. This is going to be such a weird review day for me. So I'm getting some modifications put on my Defender. That's why I'm here at the Land Rover dealership, and I'm filming this, and then I'm also filming that F-Type convertible. So we're going from this 3-cylinder Chevy to a V8 powered Jaguar. That is or should I say it how the British say it? Jaguar. Is that how it is? Anyways, actually setting off here in the Trailblazer, decent torque going through the parking lot, which is solid. Obviously the parking lot's not going to show enough, but it's not obnoxious at all. It's actually pretty solid with getting up and moving. And let's see how it goes. And by the way, I've got it in 2-wheel drive right now, which will be front wheel drive. You can feel that. You can tell that it's front wheel drive based. Suspension's actually pretty solid. Now this is like a very smooth road, so it's not the best road to test suspension, but there's some bumps in it, so it'll at least show us a little bit. Handling's good too. Yeah, going over a little bump there, it handles it pretty well. For being such a small crossover, it actually has pretty good damping. And one thing I do want to mention, unlike what people might tell you in the comment section below, it's not a rattle can. Sometimes, you know, the smaller vehicles in this segment will be pretty rattly, but this doesn't, so it's quite impressive. We're going to pop it into the sport mode. We're going to keep it in the front wheel drive mode because I want to see if it torque steers like crazy. Okay, let's see how this goes. Actually hooks up pretty well. It's also pretty quick. We'll pop it into the all-wheel drive so we can see if it feels any different with the handling characteristics. Might be one of those things where it just obviously will grip better in all-wheel drive, but it doesn't necessarily drive differently. Handles pretty well too. This thing's actually pretty exciting to drive, honestly. I know that might sound crazy because it's a 3-cylinder Chevy crossover, but it's small and it's actually pretty solid. Seat comfort while we're waiting to do our next acceleration is actually really solid. Nice padding here in the seats, and the bolsters themselves are relatively wide, so even if you're a larger individual, I think that you'll be comfortable in these seats. And then, you know, aside from that, the overall cabin, other than like, I don't know why they cheaped out on that portion of the door panel, like where you're actually gonna rest your arm. Same thing with the center console here. It's weird that they gave us these really nice seats and some nice like cloth trim here on the side. Why couldn't they, I don't know, why couldn't they continue the cloth trim down to a little bit lower? I think that was a little bit of a missed opportunity to an extent. But continuing along here, let's see what we're going to discover. Ah, get it, because discover, okay. Anyways, I like the steering too. It's relatively light. Okay, let's see how this all-wheel drive system, okay, it does feel a little bit different. It does feel a little bit different in the all-wheel drive, which I expected. So, summing things up here with the Trailblazer, I think it's a pretty cool looking crossover. I mean, reasonably priced for everything that you're getting with the powertrain and the size that this is and all of that. And so, you know, the one thing I will say though is I wouldn't see this as like I wouldn't see this as like a hardcore off-roader, even though, you know, this is kind of marketed as more of like an off-road type thing. Like, yeah, you can be able to go down some trails and everything, but like understand that that's about it. Like, you're gonna, if like from an off-roading difficulty standpoint, you're gonna want to stick to the, you know, less difficult stuff with this ultimately, because you got to remember it's a unibody crossover, doesn't have a massive amount of ground clearance, and you know, I'm sure the all drive system's good, but yeah, I would just I would take it easy on the trails with this thing.